Today is Friday, November 8th in 2024. And we welcome you again to our Chapter 49 podcast. Chapter 49 represents most IRS employees in the state of Indiana. My name is Larry Lannan. I'm a volunteer, retiree, help out with communication issues for NTU Chapter 49. So we're very glad you have chosen to join us, taking some time out from your busy schedule to listen to our podcast. We are very happy that you were here, as I mentioned before, and we're always happy to have our chapter president, Duncan Giles.
Thanks, Larry. It's always good to be here.
So I think we should just kind of put the small talk aside. We've just had a presidential election, congressional elections. We've been through many of these. You and I have as a reporter. And then as a federal employee, and now as a sort of a volunteer reporter, blogger in my local community, and a volunteer here. We've been through a lot of elections. The election results are mostly in, although it's uncertain who's going to control the House. The Republicans have the advantage. We don't know until all of the elections are done, all the votes are counted. But whichever party controls the House, it will be a very slim margin. Not much we do know. So I would very much like your take on the election and what it means to people working at an agency like IRS.
Yeah, this is going to prove, there's an old Chinese proverb that's actually a curse. May you live in interesting times. And I think that's what we're getting ready to head into. We've gone through, Republican administrations, Democratic administrations. Everyone is a little bit different. I know that there are a lot of folks who are uneasy right now about the prospects of what might happen. Couple of boards that I'm on, community boards online, people are like, well, I'm putting in my papers December 31st, things of that nature because of what's been said, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But it's going to prove interesting to see the difference between what was said during the campaign, what was promised during the campaign, and what turns out to be actual governance, how they actually govern. And I think we're going to have to take a wait and see policy at this point, as to where their interests are going to be first, how they're going to direct those, what's going to happen. I would hope that we are going to, have still a relatively normal transition. And then, they're going to want to implement, the winning party wants to always implement their policies. Absolutely. And that's their right. As long as they are legal and not in conflict with things like the Constitution and federal law. So I would hope that we would continue to see things like that. And we're just going to have to play this by ear.
I personally think, just from my experience and what I've seen in the past, at least initially, we're going to have mayhem. And what I mean by that is that I do think there will be action taken by the new president and his people in Congress, but there will also be a big pushback by others. I think that the most important takeaway I will take from this election is this: wherever you may be watching or listening, whatever agency you may have. We mostly cater to IRS people, but there are people from other agencies that do watch and listen to this podcast. I would say it is more important now than ever to build a relationship with your local member of Congress, whatever party that person may be, your senators, whichever party each of them may be, and make sure that they and their staff understand your issues for your agency, and make sure that they understand that the civil service is worth protecting. I'll have more to say about that later in the podcast, but I do believe that there are very important, there are going to be changes. What they will be, we don't know, but we do know this: there's much worth preserving that is good in our agencies, in our civil service system. Build those relationships. Make sure that your member of Congress understands. Yes, there'll be There'll be bills put before the House. It's going to be a very close uh, party breakdown. So if one party is in charge, it just takes a handful of votes from the other party to swing that vote another way. So never think that it's useless or not worth your time to let your local representatives know. They represent you. You are part of their constituency. I think it's more important than ever to build that relationship as an individual voter. Contact the staff. Let them know what you think. And if you're listening from a chapter of IRS chapter or any other NTEU chapter for any other agency, if you've never done it in the past, now is the time to do that. That's my message.
I think that's a great message, and you make a great point in that neither party is homogenous. In other words, everybody's not going to vote the same way every time. We've seen that in both parties. So if there is something too extreme from one side or the other, we would hope that folks who are in the middle, regardless of party, would be looking to see what they could do to perhaps shape it a little bit better and maybe perhaps tone it down some.
So the election is over. We have the results, and we need to see what comes next. And yeah, and I think the main thing is, I mean, yes, some people were very happy with the results, some people were unhappy. But I do believe at this point, the most important thing to do is move forward. We'll see what happens, and it's very difficult to predict the future. And speaking of that, we want to remind people about something we talked about a great deal, Project 2025. It's worth remembering that a lot of people that are going to be coming into the new administration helped write that document, although candidate Trump said he wasn't tied to it. Well, we'll see. Had a lot to say about the civil service. Remind people, Duncan, what's in that document generally that would impact people working for the federal government.
Yeah, you've got a couple of different things going on. You've got the Project 2025, which basically says we want to do what was proposed at the end of the previous Trump administration, Schedule F. They want to do that on steroids, where they want to basically take a lot of policymakers and put it in loyalists as opposed to either political appointees, because there's always going to be political appointees of both parties, whoever's in power. That's natural. But to really want to dig down and start going into people who make policy, who are implementing policy and things of that nature, and take them out of the civil service and put them in at will is something that's very scary. The other part of that is, the talk has been now that Elon Musk, who owns what is now called X, used to be called Twitter, and also, SpaceX, is going to be heading up some sort of government commission to look at, the usual waste, fraud, and abuse. And, according to things that he has said, and we do know that he has got the president-elect's ear right now, is that he really wants to gut the civil service. He wants to, put in, he says there's trillions of dollars of waste, and we are very, very concerned about that type of thing. Because as you well know, Larry, and I'm sure the folks who are watching and listening know, is, the American civil service is built to be nonpartisan. We are striving to do what Congress passes as laws and implement those. That's what we're doing. There isn't any real deep state or anything of that nature. And, we want to make sure that we continue to do this. And I'm very afraid that if for lack of a better term, baser instincts are followed on some of these things that were in Project 2025, and comments that Elon Musk has made is also what's on the president-elect's platform, it's going to be a very interesting experience for federal government employees, and I don't believe that is going to be in a good way.
Well, whatever you think of Mr. Musk generally, it's rather well documented he's not treated his own employees particularly well. So obviously he has a certain point of view here. But then, of course, we will make the argument, do you want a functioning civil service? If you do, you have to be very careful about careful what you ask for, you might get it. I want to go on to something else because even though the election is over, we still have to keep in mind the Hatch Act. We talked about the Hatch Act for several podcasts leading up to the election, trying to caution people not to get into any trouble over it. The election is over. Is there still danger you could get in trouble with the Hatch Act even after the election?
Yeah, there are some things that you still don't want to do. It still could be considered electioneering. The main thing that I want to tell people is, again, when you're at home, when you're not on government property, you're not on government time, you're not on government equipment, you want to support a particular person or a particular party to the nth degree, absolutely do it. But when you're in the workplace or doing work from home on telework, please do not be wearing hats, shirts, anything of that nature for one party or one person or, either party or any particular person politically. You really want to keep away from that. We don't want to try and have a situation where you get in trouble, especially post-election, for something like that. And this is not curbing anybody's freedom of expression or being able to do something of that nature. You're absolutely able to do that. But the federal government has rules and ethics about this, and we want to make sure that people are following those and not abusing them so we don't get anybody in trouble. That's the big thing.
Okay, so even if you supported the losing or winning candidate, do not wear campaign material, do not violate the Hatch Act. You could still do that even at this point, correct?
Yes, it is very possible. There was a lot of talk the last several years about different spokespeople or things of that nature that were electioneering even while they were in their federal positions. Trying to promote a party, a candidate, a political action party, things of that nature. And we just want to make sure that we still err on the side of caution and don't have that type of issue because it doesn't work out well for anyone.
Okay, very good. Another good reminder, a Hatch Act reminder, even after the election. Well, Duncan, we have to hit
our last one, hopefully for a while.
At least in the state of Indiana, we have no elections the year after a presidential election. So in 2025, in our state of Indiana, we have no elections. So we've got a couple of years to worry about that. We do like to give you good news when we can. And the good news is we have a little information about the awards. It's getting to be that time of year when awards come out in December. So tell us what we do know about the awards and what we do not yet know about this.
Yeah, and there's the key phrase, what we don't know yet. We do know the IRS has told National NTEU that the awards will be coming out for those who qualify on December the 9th. The actual date is going to be earlier, but the actual pay date, the important thing for employees, when am I going to get my money? That's the important thing, is going to be December the 9th. Now, I've already seen a lot of emails flying and from my brethren across the country who are already getting queries. I'm already getting queries. I know our chapter vice president, Gail Groves, has been getting a lot of queries. When am I going to get my money? December the 9th. Well, how much am I going to get? What do I get? Okay, we have no idea yet. We don't know. Each chapter handles that differently. And IRS has told National NTEU, we will be getting this to you soon. This information to you soon. Once NTU gets this, thank goodness they do this because it makes it so much easier on chapter leaders. They are going to send it out to the chapters, broken down by chapters. In other words, I'll get the chapter 49 information. So I'll be able to tell who in the chapter has. I won't have to search a nationwide database to look up somebody. I can look up the chapter 49 database. Right now, we don't know what it's going to take to qualify in a particular position to get an award. We know that it's going to be a minimum. You have your minimum, your basement. You have to have a certain, uh, level of at least, I believe it's 3.4 or 3.6, one of the two. I think it's 3.6. And if you have a 4.6, a 4.6 an outstanding rating, you're guaranteed that. The awards go to the top 55% of your particular pool of revenue agents, revenue officers, customer service representatives, CSRs, folks in the tax, folks in TAS. The top 55% plus ties are the ones who are going to get awards. So we don't know yet who's qualifying for that or what the cutoff scores are. We don't know yet what the per share amount is. And that's, you can basically, once you get the per share amount, you take that, you times it times the amount of your score in your appraisal, and that gives you, the amount that you're going to be getting. We don't have any of that information yet. Every chapter handles this differently. What I do is once we get the information, I will send out an email to all Chapter 49 members and saying, I have the information. If you want to know yours, please email me and I will handle them in the order they're received. I can tell you from past experience, when I do this, it's like opening a fire hydrant. So if you don't get a response immediately and are wondering, why hasn't he said anything to me? What hasn't, what's going on? It's that I take them in the order that they're received. It does take me a few minutes to do each one and do a response to emails because I do individual emails to respond back to people. So I will do this as quickly as possible. A couple of things to keep in mind for folks in 49 or across the country. If you've had a disciplinary action, they go through now what's called a disciplinary screening. So if in particular tax issues, that may hold up you getting an award. The second thing is, if you've had time in a non-work status, or you've been in a non-bargaining unit position, that award could be prorated. So you may say, well, I got more last year. Well, were you on LWOP for a certain amount of time, or were you detailed as a manager, let's say? Well, yeah, I was detailed as a manager for 6 months. Well, then your award is basically going to be cut in half because it's going to be prorated. So you want to keep those things in mind. The last thing I want to say on awards is they have this, and I will give management credit. They went out this year and said, double check your status, because did you ask for time off or did you ask for cash? Make sure that you have that status. It can be changed if there's something happened that's incorrect, and there are going to be these things happening across the country. Somebody elected cash, they got time off. Somebody elected time off, they got cash. That happens because everybody's human when they're inputting stuff. That's going to happen. If that does, it's going to take some time to get it corrected. So don't be impatient. If you said, okay, I want time off, well, that money you have, don't go out and spend it, because you're going to have to pay at least a certain portion of it back to cover that if you wanted the time off. So those are a few of the things that we want to do to let people know. But as soon as I get that information, I will be sending out the email to the members in Chapter 49. And again, every chapter does it differently. So if you're not in Chapter 49 and watching or listening to this podcast, your own chapter may do it very, very differently. But that's how we do it here. So I can get that information out to folks as soon as possible so they'll know what to expect. And as last thing, I always send out the gross amount because people are going, well, it's less than I expected. Yeah, taxes come out of that and everything else. And I have no control over that. Neither does the IRS. So that I send out the gross amount. So that's a long story short on where we are in awards at this time.
Yeah, got 3 things I want to say. Number one, anytime I deal with the management, whether I was a manager or a union official, and they say, we'll get it to you soon, I'm sorry. What does that mean? They're going to get it to you, but sometimes they say soon. Your definition of soon is not their definition of soon. And also for you people, let's say, who had details to management and you say, let's say I got 6 months of management, 6 months of bargaining unit. Let me tell you something. You're better off with half of the bargaining unit than being in managers awards. Okay. I've been in managers awards. You don't want to do that. And finally, the reminder we all need to make, this is not happening out of the kindness of the management's heart. NTEU worked very hard to, in the late 1980s, first establish this program and preserve it at times that IRS was attacking it viciously. It may happen again. But we have worked hard to preserve it. It may not be exactly the way we want it, but we've worked hard to at least preserve it and make sure you have an award system. So anything else on awards, Duncan?
Yeah, I do want to give kudos because we have pressed and pressed and pressed to try and make sure to keep up money in the awards and to try and increase it, and it will in later years. And I give all the credit in the world to, former national president Tony Reardon, current national president Doreen Greenwald, director of negotiations Ken Moffett, and a host of chapter presidents and other NTU staff members who did a great job on making sure that we kept that at a higher mark, because we want to make sure that employees are getting the compensation they deserve, especially for awards.
Yeah, and we'll keep you up to date here. Also, if we have any specific information that you need to know, we also have a Facebook page. If you want to find it, go to NTEU Chapter 49 Indiana. You can like or follow it, and we put updates up there when there is information of interest to you. So that's another way we can communicate to you as well as through this podcast. We're recording this on November 8th, and the Monday following is a federal holiday. It's November 11th. It stayed November 11th. That's one holiday that did not change to a Monday holiday. And the reason is because November 11th is so important in American and in world history. It was the end of World War I, which at the time was described as the war to end all wars. It was not, as we know, but it was a horrible war. The loss of life was massive and amazing. I mean, World War II was bad too, don't get me wrong. But that's why the November 11th date has been preserved as the day we celebrate Veterans Day. My dad was a disabled vet. He always observed Veterans Day, and it's always been recognized and celebrated in my city of Fishers. We have a large Veterans Day celebration, and it's large numbers of people come, and it's the first time we'll be able to have it in our new city hall, where there will be no more room for people to attend the veterans. I can't attend this year because I have a doctor's appointment. I can't move. That's when things happen. But I do think that Veterans Day should always be it is a day off, but never forget the reason that this holiday is recognized.
Yeah, absolutely, Larry. Your dad, with his service, my dad was in World War II, shipped over just in time for Battle of the Bulge, was a veteran as well. And I'm a huge believer in thanking veterans, either current or past. And if you're viewing this podcast or listening to it, I just want to say, and on behalf of Larry as well, thank you so much for your service. It is very much appreciated. And I like doing that to folks that I see in uniform, or if I see, older gentlemen, and me getting up in years myself, when I see older gentlemen wearing things, hats or something of that nature that show they're veterans, I love to buy them a meal or a cup of coffee or something like that. Just small tokens to show my appreciation for the service that they've gone through for this country. And I'm extremely appreciative of this. And I think Veterans Day, as you said, Larry, is very much a day to celebrate and be thankful for those folks who have served.
And we appreciate your comments, and we do believe that we would urge you to do whatever you have available to you in your local community to honor veterans. Let's move on to another issue. We have open season coming up for health insurance and other benefits that are out there for federal employees. And you've all read about that. An average 13.5% increase in health insurance premiums. Probably this is the one year you really do want to take a close look at which um, benefit plan, which health insurance plan you're going to choose. You have a long list of them in most parts of the country to choose from, even several national ones. So, Duncan, once again, NTEU is going to offer advice and help to our membership and has even this, made it a better situation. So, explain what people will be able to look forward to and help from NTEU and United Benefits in making their health insurance choices.
Absolutely. And this is something that's coming up rapidly is our open season. And we want to make sure, and I urge folks to take a close look at this because these insurance premiums have been high for quite a while and are shooting up even more. NTU on their website for members offers the consumer's checkbook where you can go down, take a look, compare apples to apples. Okay, what's going to be, how much do I need to pay for, myself or my family or my spouse and myself, what my premiums are going to be, what my out-of-pocket limit is, what my deductibles are, what my catastrophic limit is, and it puts this in a very nice book, whether you want high deductible plan or whether you want PPO, basically anything the federal government offers, you can use this consumer checkbook for, and it's very, very helpful. The other thing that I'm very excited about this year, and we will have somebody from United Benefits on to talk about this, is they've got the Health Benefits Genius, I believe it's called, and they say that they've got a program that can, take your information in and tell you then once they get your information what the best program is out there for you. You don't have to make that choice, but they, this is something that they've honed. They're very excited about. I've talked to, the folks at United Benefits about this, and they're very excited about this. I'm looking forward to being one of their early guinea pigs on this. I think I know which plan I'm going to switch to because the plan I'm on this year has jumped up about 20% in premiums, and that's just way too high. And I think that there's another plan out there that'll suit me just as well, give me the same amount of coverage. But, we want to make sure that folks have that, and it'll be on United Benefits site. And this, again, is going to be something that is going to be available for NTEU members. So if you're not an NTU member, you may want to join if you're watching this and you're not a member, because this is one of the added benefits. And that alone could pay for your union dues easily for a year if you get in the wrong plan. And so you want to make sure to, think about this, because there are a lot of people who just say, well, it's another cost increase, but this is the one I've always had, so I'm going to stick with it. And that's not the best value for your family, possibly. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I think we're getting a little bit of a delay. I think our connection's not 100% this time, but you never know until you hook up, right? We'll look forward to hearing from United Benefits. We had them on, a year ago or so, and we'll look forward to getting more advice from them and some more details on that. I have a quick thing I want to say here before we get to final comments. There's something you'll see if you look at federal employee like websites that provide news on federal employee issues. Something called GPOWEP. Whenever you see GPOWEP, I won't get into what it's basically related to a windfall provision. It's not as many of us impacted by this. I worked 14, 15 years under Social Security, entered the federal government in 1983 in the CSRS system. PERS didn't come into play until people who were hired about a few months after I was. So I was one of the last people covered by CSRS and retired under that. Now, that windfall provision, that Social Security that I get is whacked a lot. And what happened is some people were getting a windfall in that position for a while. Congress did what they unfortunately do too many times. When they tried to correct it, they whacked it way too much and penalized us really more than they should have. And I think there's an agreement on that. It's taken years. And finally, the House of Representatives as I think the discharge petition, essentially bipartisan support. Speaker of the House is for this, the minority leaders for this. There's going to be a vote scheduled the week of November 11th on this provision. It's the furthest it's ever gotten Congress. We think there are enough votes to pass it in the House. We don't know if the Senate would have time to pass this, but we think the president would sign it. President Biden would if it gets to his desk before the end of his term. So we don't know what will happen, but it's impacting me and a few other people just trying to correct a wrong that has been around for a long time. That's my speech, a little bit of personal privilege on that one. And let me turn it over to Duncan Giles for Duncan's final comment.
My final comment today, and I've thought about this quite a bit. People are very concerned about what's going to happen with the new administration. And I can tell you that NTEU, both nationally and locally, has been through this before. We've been through several threats, downsizing threats, threats to basically try and eviscerate collective bargaining, our rights, our protections for employees. And we will use every tool that we have to work with the new administration coming in and Congress to make sure that federal employees are, still taken care of, still protected, still given their rights. We want to work with them. We want to talk with them. We want to make them understand how it's in everyone's best interest to have an unbiased civil service that has protections of rights to make sure that there are no abuses. If they decide not to go this way, please understand that NTEU will do everything within its legal power to work against this, whether it be talking to members of Congress, whether it be in the courts, whether it's making sure that we are having our current contracts upheld. If there are no laws that pass that are, overruling it, if they do that, then we'll be in the courts challenging those. We're here to stay. We're here to protect you. We're here for the federal employees that we represent, and we're going to continue to do that. It may not be easy, but that's what we're here for, and we will continue to do that. And I can assure you that from National President Doreen Greenwald, National Vice President Terry Scott, all my brethren across the country, whatever agency it may be, we will continue to fight for you, our members.
Duncan, I want to talk about my dad because my father, who passed away 30 years ago, spent almost all of his working life working in the civil service, working for the Department of Defense. And he always extolled the virtues of a professional civil service, which he had been a part. He came in as a rank and file employee, as a grade 5 at the beginning. He was a union official. He was a manager, sometimes, and a top manager toward the end of his career. And he always taught me the importance of the civil service. What people don't understand is look at people like Thomas Friedman. Tom Friedman is a journalist with the New York Times. He's written about foreign affairs for many, many years. He's traveled the world as much as anybody. And he writes often about how our civil service is the envy of the world. I mean, there are probably just a handful of countries in Western Europe, Canada, some other places that have a civil service in terms of professionalism and being non-political, that get the work done in a nonpartisan way. And Michael Lewis has written about our civil service. He's dug a deep dive into that and extols the virtues of it. People who are unbiased, who look at it as unbiased as you can, know it's not perfect. Private sector isn't perfect. I worked 14 years in the private sector, and Duncan, you did a lot of years there. That's far from perfection as far as any kind of employment relations are concerned. So my message to you is when people talk to you about this, when they trash the civil service, say, hey, wait a minute. There are countries in the world, people who live in lots of the world who would envy us, would love to have a civil service like ours, to run the Defense Department, to run our tax system, to run our Food and Drug Administration. I can go all the way down Customs Services. I can go all the way down the line. So keep in mind that our civil service is valuable. It's a national asset, and it's worth preserving. We're willing to talk about reasonable situations where it can be better. We've worked at NTU, we've worked on making the civil service better. Duncan, you and I have both done that. I did it as a manager, but I did it as a union official too. It's like we have an interest in a well-functioning civil service, and we care about the public and what we do for them.
Yep.
That's the end of my speech. Any quick last comment from you?
No, it's one of those things where, you know what, NTU could very possibly have a target on us. You know what, I could have a big target on me. Let them come, because we're here for you.
You know, the retirees are not out of this either. We may come under the same kind of attack. Duncan, Giles, thank you so much. And more than ever, we do plan to continue the Chapter 49 podcast to keep all of you up to date on what is happening as best we can. And one thing we do want to do is thank you for spending time out of your busy schedule to watch or listen to our podcast. And the only reason Duncan takes time out of his valuable time as being a chapter president, and I, of course, donate my very valuable time as a retired guy, is because you tell us that we provide something of value to you. So with that in mind, thank you again for watching and listening. Please be safe and be kind.